Okay, so we have the poem now, A Photograph by Shirley Toulson. As I've told you before also, the poem Photograph contrasts the eternal state of nature and the transitory state of human beings. The poet describes a photograph that captures interesting moments of a mother's childhood when she went for a sea holiday with her two girl cousins. The poet draws a contrast between nature changing at the snail's pace and the fast changing human life. Nature changes slowly but does change. But human beings, life changes very fast. Again, come back to the same thing. Our life has changed abruptly and see how abrupt the changes and quickly, immediately what has happened to us. We are all studying at home. Life changes, isn't it? The poet recollects how her mother laughed at the photograph and felt disappointed at the loss of her childhood joys. The sea holiday was her mother's past at that time, while her mother's laughter is the poet's past now. With great difficulty and at different periods of time, both reconcile with their respective losses and the pain involved in recollecting the past. For the poet, the death of her mother brings great sadness and an acute sense of loss. The painful silence of the situation leaves her with no words to express the grief. And in the end, the poet says, the silence silences. Let's do it. This three stanza of the poem, and then we do the rest of the part. The first four lines. Cardboard shows me how it was when the two girl cousins went paddling, each one holding one of my mother's hands, and she, the big girl, some 20 years or so. She, the big girl, some 20 years or so. Word paddling, paddling, walking in the water, going for a sea holiday. It means in these lines, the poet is looking at an old photograph or photo album which is made up of cardboard. In the picture, there are three girls who are walking on the beach holding each other's hands. The girl is in the middle, is the tallest and oldest, and the other two girls on either side are younger than her. The girl in the middle is poet's mother. She is about 12 years old when the picture was taken. The girl in the middle is poet's mother and she is 12 years old when the picture is taken. And mother is older now. She's having a little daughter. She is showing her daughter the picture. See, look, once upon a time, when I was a little girl of 12 years of age, I used to go paddling with my cousins Betty and Dolly and see what we did. This is the poem about. Fine. The next stanza. All three stood still to smile through their hair at the uncle with the camera. A sweet face, my mother's, that was before I was born, and see, which appears to have changed less, washed their terribly transient feet. Transient is a word, new word for you. Transient means temporary, short term, which is not for long, temporary. In the above lines, these lines, the poet is describing how the photograph was taken. A mother's uncle took the photograph and told them to stop and pose like we pose for the photograph. All three of them left their wet hair open and smiled at the camera. Cheese and paneer and whatever we say. The poet's attention is drawn towards her mother's face, which is described at a as a sweet face. The photograph was taken long before the poet was born. This little girl was born. It was taken long, long ago because the girl mother was 12 years of age. The poet calls her feet terribly transient as they were so young by then. Now they had grown older. On the other hand, the sea which touched the feet has changed less. Means the sea has changed less, but the memories still are there, and the mother is, of course, very different. The mother is no more. The mother grew up, got married, his daughter was born. The mother showed this picture, photograph to the daughter, felt nostalgic. Today, the daughter is seeing that photograph and remembering that once upon a time, my mother used to show me this photograph and feel nostalgic. Now, I am also feeling nostalgic because my mother is not along with me. Next lines. Some 20, 30 years later, she had laughed at the snapshot. See Betty and Dolly, she'd say, and look how they dressed us for the beach. Snapshot is the photograph. About after 20, 30 years later, about 20, 30 years later, 20 or 30 years later, she would laugh at the photograph. Who would laugh? The mother would laugh at the photograph and would say, and she would tell the poet to look at her cousins. What were the names of the cousins? Betty and Dolly, and how the parents would dress all three of them up for the beach. They would have planned to take a photograph beforehand, and then they dressed us up for the beach. We went for a sea holiday and see how we enjoyed. It happens, The age changes, the time changes. If I look at my photographs when I was 12 years old, I will also laugh at those photographs. See how they dressed me up at that moment. They didn't dress me up the way I am dressing up like this because the world has changed. When I was 12 years of age in 1980s, the world was very different. And today, when you people are about the same age, the world is extremely different. Everything has changed. The dressing up has changed. So we all laugh at that photograph. You see how they used to dress up. Fine. So similarly, the mother is was also laughing that see, little girl, they used to dress up like this, right? They used to dress us up like this, and we used to go for the sea holiday, and our photograph was clicked. See, imagine that photograph was clicked. Photograph becomes a very important part of life before this age, you can say before 2010 or 2005 maybe. The reason is photography was done only with cameras. And if you say before 2000 or before 1997 or 98, the time was still different. The reason is the cameras were different. We didn't have the digital cameras then. We used to have a photographic film which used to capture 36, 24, either 12 photographs per reel. And whenever this film was finished, the matter finished. Then you have to buy another film, get it uh, set in the camera, and then you would be able to click only 36 photographs. And whenever you had to click a photograph, you had to be very careful of all the pose you had to make, all the scenery which you had to capture, and who all was supposed to be there in the photograph. Everything was set before, and that photograph was clicked. If it was a very good moment, you would click two, otherwise, one was enough. Because everything was limited at that time. Now, photograph is not a big deal. Every moment has a photograph. We have a selfie culture. Best cameras are there on our mobile phones. We don't have to bother about a photograph. For every moment, we have a photograph. Sleeping, we have a pose. Morning, getting up, we have a pose. In the dreams, what take we don't know this about because we will start clicking our dreams also. Possible Google comes out with some you can say app phone. Sorry, sir, because we don't have that app right now. So let's not talk about it. Anyways, photograph. So that was the nostalgic part of the photograph earlier on. That's why this poem is made. Maybe the different poem will be made on selfies if we talk about today. So the girl is saying that mother used to tell that 20, 30 years ago, they would laugh at the photograph and tell me, my mother used to tell me, see how Betty and Dolly and I were dressed up for the beach holiday and what all things we used to do, isn't it? Now, the sea holiday was a past. Mine her laughter, both dry with labored ease of loss. Be very careful, understand this. Fine. What is the meaning of this? What was the sea holiday was a past. My mother's past was the sea holiday. Mine is her laughter. My past is my mother's laughter. What has happened? My mother used to show me this photograph and laugh. My mother is no longer alive. She has passed away. So what happens? I remember my mother laughing. My mother remembered herself being happy during the sea holiday. So we are talking about two pasts here. One past which the mother used to remember and get nostalgic. Then when she used to remember her sea holiday. And the second past is my past, when my mother showed me this photograph and felt nostalgic and laughter. Both the laughter and both rhyme with labored ease of loss. Both rhyme with labored ease of loss. Rhyme means mocking, ironic. Right? When you are ironical about something, when you're mocking with something. Labored ease of loss. The poet recalls the sea holiday was her mother's favorite moment from the past, while the poet's favorite moment from her past was her mother's laughter. Both women would think about those past memories which they cannot live again. They tried their best to adjust to what they lost. Both rhyme with labored ease of loss. Labored ease. The meaning of this word labored ease is the effort required to deal with the loss. Labored means effort. You're putting the effort to deal with the loss. What loss? The loss of the mother for the poet, because the mother is no longer there, and mother would also feel the loss, the mother's childhood. Mother would feel the loss of her childhood, and the poet would feel the loss of her mother. So both were mocking, both were nigh with labored ease of loss. Understood this? Now she has been dead nearly as many years as the girl lived. Now she has been dead nearly as many years as that girl lived, and for this circumstance, there is nothing to say at all. It's silence, silences. Silence means absence of sound, of course, any other sound. In these lines, the poet says that her mother died 12 years ago, the same age her mother was in the photograph. Whenever the poet thinks of her mother's death, she cannot explain what effect she has of her mother's death. Death has silenced her mother, which has also left her speechless. Fine. Mother's past, her beautiful holiday, and daughter's past, her laughter. But today, the daughter is unhappy. She is silenced. And you're sad, you're silenced, isn't it? Silenced by her mother's loss, which has made her speechless. Understood? This is a simple poem, talks about the mother and the daughter, how the daughter recollects her mother's past. There are three stanzas in this poem, and the three stanzas in this poem depict three different stages of life: early adolescence, that is girlhood, and adulthood, and early adolescence of the mother, adulthood, and then the death, the ultimate death, which explains everything itself. I can repeat the basic idea of the poem. The poet recollects how her mother laughed at the photograph and felt disappointed at the loss of her childhood joys. The sea holiday was her mother's past at that time. With her mother's laughter is the poet's past now. With great difficulty and at different periods of time, both reconcile with their respective losses and the pain involved in recollecting the past. Because when you recollect the past, you are really pained. That pain is required, that labored ease of loss. That is the pain that is there. And the effort required to get over that loss. That is the labor ease of loss. Fine. Both reconcile with their respective losses and the pain involved in recollecting the past. For the poet, the death of her mother brings great sadness and an acute sense of loss. And painful silence of the situation leaves her with no words to express her grief. Thus, the lines, the silence silences her. The silence, the loss silences her, makes her quiet. That's the poem, A Photograph. That's why the name is A Photograph. Quickly, I'll go to the poetic devices. It's been explained in the video also, but still I'll explain it again. Alliteration. You know what is alliteration? Repetition of consonant sound at the beginning of two or more consecutive words. That is alliteration. So, alliteration, repetition of consonant sound at the beginning of two or more consecutive words. The instances of alliteration in the poem are stood still, stood still, so and so, who there, the and the, my mother, this mo and ma, terribly transient, the, silences, silence, silences. These are the alliteration, the examples of alliteration in the poem. Then we have a oxymoron. What is an oxymoron? A term which contradicts itself, goes against each other. Fine, like labored is. Labored is working very very hard, and easy is easy. But both of them have been used together to express the idea that effort is required to deal with loss. Remember, it is the effort which is required to deal with the loss. When you lose something, you need a lot of effort. Fine. So this is it. And the next one is transferred epithet. Written here, epithet. It's transferred epithet. A phrase expressing a quality of a person or something. It's terribly transient. What is transferred epithet? Chitra, you understand it properly. Transferred epithet is a figure of speech in which an adjective grammatically qualifies a noun rather other than a person or a thing it actually is describing. For example, sleepless night. Right? Sleepless night. Night is not sleepless. You are sleepless. What do you say? Sleepless night. What a boring day. The day is not boring. You have been bored because you didn't have much work to do. So that's why we use this transferred epithet. Here we use terribly transient. So let's see what is the meaning of this terribly transient. Terribly transient means something which is temporary or short-lived. Transient means which is something which is short-lived. Here, when the author says terribly transient feet, she refers to the ever-changing imprints of the feet left on the sea sand. Sea never appears to change, but the human feet are is transient. Fine, human feet is transient. Hence, this uh, poetic device, the the transferred epithet. Understood? Now, I'll tell you more things. The important points of this poem, you can note them down. Understanding the lessons through key sentences. First, the poet the poet looks at the cardboard on which there is a childhood photograph of a mother. The poetess looks at the cardboard on which there is a childhood photograph of a mother. First. Second, she had gone for a sea holiday with her two cousins, Betty and Dolly. Who had gone? The mother had gone. The mother had gone on a sea holiday with her two cousins, Betty and Dolly. Then, while they were paddling, their uncle took a photograph of them. Whose photograph was taken? Mother and her two cousins. Who are the two cousins? Betty and Dolly. Fine. Both the cousins were holding the hands of their mother, who's in the center and is eldest among the girls. Fine. Then this happened before the poet was born, but of course it was because the mother at that time was only 12 years age. Fine. The poet was born afterwards. Clear? Time fled past since, and all those who are in the photograph underwent changes while the sea remained the same. Fine. Mother is no longer alive, and we don't know anything about the cousins. Probably the cousins are also not alive, Patty and Dolly, or even if they are alive, they are old. Fine. So everything has changed, but the sea still remains like that. Transient. Her mother would look at the photograph after about 20 or 30 years and laugh nostalgically. Nostalgic, that feeling which you come, which has sadness and happiness together, fine. Mother would laugh. Now, for the poet, her mother's laughter and her sea holiday is the thing of the past. Her mother died about 12 years ago from now, when the poet is seeing the picture. The silence of the photograph silences the poet, and she experiences great loss. The poet experiences a great loss. He also understands the loss which her mother suffered, and she felt nostalgic about. The mother felt nostalgic about the loss of her childhood when she showed the photograph to her daughter. And now daughter is feeling loss which she has suffered because of her mother's not being with her. So this is Shirley Poulson's poem, The Photograph, which talks about a photograph which had a beautiful, nice picture of mother and her two cousins, Betty and Dolly, when they had gone on a sea holiday paddling, and an uncle had click the photograph, and the mother used to show the photograph to the daughter. Kid, dekho, see my photograph. We three of us went for a sea holiday and enjoy a lot, and it was a wonderful time. Uncle, click the photograph and see how they dressed us. What I was wearing, see, and see, look at our hair. It was all wet, fine, and we were drenched in water, and we were enjoying a lot. And then she used to feel sad. Oh, that was my. And today the daughter is remembering that photograph. Through the photograph, she's remembering the mother. Yo, my mother used to be so happy and nostalgic at the same moment. And she used to show me this photograph. I lost her 12 years ago. I'm sad. That is the poem. Fine. So thank you so much for seeing this. Please, of course, the same cliched lines again and again. Hit the bell icon, subscribe the channel, like the video, and if you don't understand, go for it again and again. And rest of the assignments and everything will be sent to you. Kindly see it. Thank you so much. Till the next chapter.